How many of you been on an airplane today? Crass, terrible. Yesterday? International, raise your hand. How you doing? Yeah, good. Popcorn, coffee, he's all in. Here's what you need to do to make sure that the full experience of who you are got into this room. I see your body. I'm not sure your minds have arrived yet, so do me a favor, stand up. We're going to do a little cognitive test to see if jet lag, food coma, lunch, or your social index is already maxed out because you're an introvert thinking, please don't make me do any more of this extrovert crap. All right, here's what we're going to do just to test your full cognitive capabilities. Can you see my hands? Okay, when they cross, I just want to see if your mind and body have both arrived. So when my hands cross, you're simply going to clap. Is it clear? There's 5 of you know it's clear. All right, you ready? Hands up. You see my hand? Yeah. And when they cross, you're going to what? All right, are you ready? That's terrible. Okay, hold on. Ready? Try it again. Ready? Body and mind and soul. Now, see, they cross both ways. See, I want you all here. Hands up. Ready. When my hands cross, you're going to clap. Are you ready? Okay, that's good enough. Sit down. Thank you for joining me at Talent Connect. 11 years, 4 months, 22 days. 11 years, 4 months, and 22 days ago, doctor said I had 24 hours to live. I didn't hear that because I was in a coma at the time, but I had a similar conversation a few days earlier when I could tell of all the stuff I'd been going through, things were different. And I asked the doctor, what are the odds I'm going to die? Now, my mother was in the room, and as mothers are wont to do, oh, don't be ridiculous. And the doctor said, well, actually, the odds are very high. I don't remember a lot after that, went into a coma, and a lot of things went crazy. But it all actually started 6 months earlier. Life was good. I was strong, healthy, vibrant, and everything in my control. Standard weekday Wednesday, 6:30 in the morning, I went out to the kitchen. My wife asked me a question, and the next thing I remember was looking up into the eyes of a paramedic. I'd had a severe blackout and was unconscious till the paramedics came and revived me. And they wanted to know, as did I, what happened. There was not a hint of, I don't feel well. It was, hey, how ya? Out. So for the next several months, doctors had a ball testing to see what happened. Monitors and blood tests and all kinds of things, couldn't figure out anything. So then doctors said the terrible words you should always be aware of. We'd like to do one more test. If you ever hear that, run. Well, their one more test, they were curious. They wanted me to come in, wire me up, and do something called a tilt table test, where you stand kind of in a weird angle for 45 minutes. And so they put me on a table, wired me up, and they called it an extreme clinical reaction. Layman's translation, they put me into cardiac arrest on accident. Fortunately, there was a nurse there, gave me CPR, and then it happened again, more CPR. We were getting to know each other very well. And doctors were in a panic because they've never had the extreme clinical reaction to a tilt table test. So they rushed me upstairs and had a surgery to put in a pacemaker. Unexpected, but off we went. A week later, I found pain that I'd never experienced my entire life. The leads ripped out of my heart, bled internally, and was getting electrocuted by the pacemaker, now not attached to anything. Back to the hospital, another emergency surgery. This one was harder to fix what they put in the week earlier. A couple weeks later, I'm kind of re-entering work and life and realizing, gosh, I don't feel nearly as invincible as I did a few weeks ago. Got back into the flow of work, and one day I was driving in and started having severe abdominal pains. And I don't like the doctor. I don't go to the doctor, but I thought, I'm going to go to the doctor. This feels different. They put me into a test. The test, they said, guess what? We're going to another emergency surgery. Simple. They took out my gallbladder and felt like, all right, this is getting old. I went home, and that night fever spiked. Went into the hospital for observation. And things started turning in a way I knew this is not anything I've ever experienced with my body before. And that's when I asked the question. Turns out everything went to hell in a handbasket quick. Doctors told my family he's got about 24 hours to live. And obviously the fact that I'm here, something went tremendously right. They took the long shot and put me on an organ transplant list, which can take years. I had 24 hours, and in that strange stuff that I can't explain, somehow I went to the number 1 position on the transplant list, and unfortunately somebody in Arizona lost their life, but they had chosen to be a donor, and I was a match, and they put body parts in a jet and flew it to Stanford, and 12-hour surgery later, put me back together, and that's how I'm standing here today, which is a good thing. It's a very good thing. But I have a whole different perspective on life, pretty clearly. I don't think the same way I do as I used to. I came away with 2 very clear perspectives. One, life is fragile. I felt pretty invincible and all was well prior to that stuff. And I came out realizing, here today, gone tomorrow. Strong today, incredibly weak the next day. The second perspective was that life is precious. I thought I had that perspective beforehand, but when I heard the fact that there was a high likelihood I was going to die, instantly I thought about all the moments of my kids' lives that I would not be there for. And it was heartbreaking. And it brought me to a quote by Mary Oliver, who's an American poet, that I think is so profound. Simply stated, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And I think it's a question that we should be asking ourselves far more frequently than we do. And so I ask you, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Do me a favor, close your eyes and imagine. Kind of enter a room and you see a crowd of people milling about and sit down and you notice, you know most of them, not all of them. And then people begin to tell stories. And you realize the stories are all about you. And it takes a minute for you to realize, as you open your eyes, that it's your funeral. And people are gathered to remember the life you lived. And the question is, what stories would they be able to tell about you and the life you lived? And if you died now, would they be the stories you want to be told? For me, I realized all the stories that I wanted weren't there. And it gave me a new perspective, and I had a second chance. Stephen Pressfield says something that haunts me. He says, most of us have 2 lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. I don't know about you, but at the end of my life, I don't want any unlived life left. I want it all on the table. I want to give it all. But I'm not convinced that people get through life getting it all out. In fact, I know it's not the case. Bronnie Ware is an end-of-life nurse who wrote a book because as people were dying, she saw there was a commonality, and that's regret. At the end of their lives, not only did they have regret, but they were common. Maybe these ring a bell for you. Dying regrets. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And I wish I'd let myself be happier. Let myself be happier? And then I paused and thought, I think a lot of our unhappiness is absolutely self-imposed. I don't know about you, but at the end of your life, my life, I don't want regret. I don't want the unlived life. Maya Angelou says it another way. There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. Do you have an untold story? What is your story? You're the writer, the editor, the producer of your life. You get to write the story. And the question is, are you giving yourself a starring role in a great story, or are you playing a bit part in somebody else's story? You're in control. But what's your story? Is there an untold story inside you? I want to pause and kind of take a quick journey. At LinkedIn, we believe in dreaming big. And I realized we think about the good life, and yet we rarely actually identify what that means specifically. And so I want to go on a 2-minute guided tour, if you will. grab a pencil, pen, whatever it is. We're going to start a conversation with ourselves that I would challenge you and encourage you to finish later. I do it every single year, and I'm always amazed at the changing results. But I want you to imagine this. If your life was perfect in every way, what would perfect look like for you? If you could have the genie show up and grant you the wish, would you know the specifics of a perfect life? Well, let's go there and entertain for a minute. I'm going to start with the lowest hanging fruit and the easiest and the least important, just to warm us up. Because sometimes when we think about that perfect life, it's like, someday I'm going to sail into the sunset on a sailboat. So let's start there. Just start jotting down. Someday on your own, make a list of 50 things you want that you think, life would be better if I had fill in the blank. Now for me, it was a Rickenbacker guitar. Beautiful guitar. I thought, that would make life a little bit better. Baby grand piano next to a Rickenbacker guitar. What's the stuff that you'd think, that would add color and flavor to my life? Just start the list, ... come back to it later. And maybe it's not big stuff. Maybe it's something that you cherish as a hand-me-down from your family. Some keepsake. That artwork from your kid when they were 3 years old and said, "Love you, Daddy," all spelled wrong. Like the most precious thing you ever want. So what's on your list of things that you'd like to have in the perfect life? More importantly, where do you want to go? This amazing world, and we get heads down, and we get very familiar with the carpet, because that's where we go, walking heads down, that's what we know. But where are the places you want to experience? What countries, what villages? One of the most experiences of my life, the best, I brought my kids back to Ireland where I grew up in the house my grandfather built. It was just because it was personal. They loved it. We've been to some cool places, but that's the one they remember. What would be the color in your life? Place you've always wanted to go. At the end of your life, what stories do you want told about you and the places you've been? Dr. Seuss, all the places we'll go. So start the list, ... come back and revisit it later. Who do you want to meet? In case you haven't figured it out, life is about relationships. And the people in can make your life miserable or fantastic. Choose wisely. But if you could meet anybody, it'd be great to have coffee with that guy. It'd be a ball. It'd be just an interesting story to tell at the end of my life. Who do you want to meet? I'm convinced half the time, if we don't ever put it down on paper, we miss the opportunities that might be right in front of us. So sometimes it's just nice to kind of think through the possibilities. So who are some people you'd like to meet? Write some names down, ... Come back, finish it later. What would you like to do? I've heard it said, life is a collection of experiences, collect well. Those things that you do. Maybe you want to be one of those people who jumps out of a perfectly good airplane. There's a lot of adrenaline on here. We're going to go all these places, but maybe for you, I don't want to do anything adrenaline-driven. I want to learn to knit. I actually met a woman. Her pursuit was combining the people and the thing. She wanted to spend more time with her grandmother. Her grandmother spends a lot of time knitting. So she thought, this is the perfect opportunity. She asked her grandmother to teach her to knit, and every week they get together. 2 great outcomes. She now knows how to knit a lot of stuff, but more importantly, she's had great, rich conversations with her grandmother. What are the things you want to do? I wanted to bring my kids back to where I grew up in Ireland, show them the house, walk the fields. What do you want to do that would add the color and richness and fabric of your life? Write down a few things, ... add to the list later. Like I said, I do this every single year, and I'm amazed that new ideas come up. Like, how did I not think of that last year? This would be a great idea. Because you never stop designing and creating the life you want. But one more element I would certainly not want you to miss. Winston Churchill nailed it. He said, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. It's better to give than receive. Go deep on that for a minute. The places you've been touched when people have given into your life with their time, with their talent, with money. There's a million ways we can contribute. And sometimes we get in this false dichotomy where we think, that's later in life when I've got it all figured out, I'll give to some stuff. We miss the opportunity. Sometimes it works that way. Ronald Reed was a gas station attendant for 25 years, and when he died, he shocked his town because he left $6 million to the hospital and the library because he wanted to give back to the community where he grew up. Genevieve Villacava was a special needs teacher for 45 years, and when she died, she left $1 million to her students because she wanted to continue to take care of them after she was gone. Those are amazing things. Now it's at the end. Coming out of the surgeries, I had a different appreciation for the hardest piece I did not expect. All the surgeries, the coma, the transplant. But when I came out, I had thousands of stitches holding me together. They had unpacked everything and put it all back together and held me together with duct tape. But they would not give me water for fear that my body would reject and I'd throw up and rip out all the stitches and ruin all the good work they did. For 3 days, I begged for water. I've never been more agonized and thirsty or painful in my life. I would have traded years of my life for a glass of water in that time. But I came out with such an incredible passion and realized there's 1 billion people in the world that don't have access to clean water. And I suffered for 3 days and could barely function and realized there's people all over the globe getting sick, walking miles, never having access to water. And that became a passion of mine. There's some incredible charities that we get to support. Find the things that absolutely turn the wheels for you and give to them, knowing you're making a difference in people's lives right now. I think Churchill nailed it. We make a life by what we give. Your time, who do you mentor? Who do you just choose to give the gift of your time, your talent, your treasures, whatever it is? It's kind of a blueprint for life. Here's what I'd like you to do. I think there's power in getting it from here to here. So I want you to literally just kind of turn to a couple of people near you. I'm going to give you 15 seconds to kind of rummage through what you just thought about, things you want to do, places you want to go, things you want to try, things that you want to give to, and say it out loud, the one that excites you most. Like, man, if I could snap my fingers and make that one happen, that's the one that turns me into just a whole bunch of excitement. So take 15 seconds. Time flies when you're having fun, so done. Now, turn to people and literally just share out loud the thing that's most exciting in the journey of what your life could be. Go. If you finished early, turn to another person and tell them. So turn to 2 people. All right. Raise your hand if you can hear me. Put your hand down if you can hear me. Put your hands up if you can hear me. Now, somebody with their hand up right now, you didn't know, you just volunteered. I actually want to give you the moment. Who's got something they're so excited about they want to stand up and tell everybody else in this audience? One of those goals that you'd be psyched about your life. Be brave. Right there. Tell us your name. What's the big goal?
I'm Jules, and I haven't traveled a lot, and so my goal for this year has been to travel, and I'm going to Thailand in November as part of that. So,
who's been to Thailand? That's pretty good. Talk to them. Give her some tips. Who's got another one? Goal they're super excited about sharing. Way back here, making me run. Okay, run and fun, not good. Name, what's the thing you want to add to your life?
My name is Dan, and the thing that I would like to add to my life is just to give more of myself to the people that I love. And, because we're here, like you said, for such a short time, and I think giving yourself is the best time you can give.
Who?
Myself.
Who are you going to give to?
My family and friends.
Which family member?
Probably my parents.
Write them a letter and tell them how much you love them. Will you do it?
Yes, I will.
All right, Mom and Dad, here it comes. Give me another one. One more, right here. Name, what's the thing going to add to your life?
My name's Tiffany, and the thing I want to add to my life or other people's lives is write a children's book that explains to children when loved ones have passed away before they were born and how they're still around you and still in your lives and kind of putting it in children's terms.
I have 2 of those. How many want to write a book? Raise your hand. That's it? Statistically, 89% of people believe there's a book in them. Now, liars. How many of you want to write a book? You're afraid I'm going to hold you accountable, right? No, I'm not going to write a book. Huh? It's hard, apparently. I heard this, and it's the most meaningful quote I've ever heard. Not really, but it struck me. Nobody likes to write. They like to have written. Yes. Give me one more. Be brave. Stand up. Who wants to tell us? Right there. I'm going to give you a mic. We saved you best, so it's got to be best for last, right? Oh, no. Yes.
I'm Emily, and I really want to foster and adopt children.
Okay, that was a good ending. Change the life of somebody who doesn't have parents. Any single piece of these things can change the trajectory of your life because what you choose to add to it, what you choose to give, it's a healthy process, and it will change over time. Revisit the list. Every year I go through this. Like I said, and goofily enough this year, I thought, you know what? My kids and I watched Chuck, only because a buddy of mine was the editor on this show. Anybody watch Chuck? Weird, kind of, yeah, interesting show. And I thought, Zachary Levi seems like a cool guy. He was coming out with Shazam as his new movie. Thought I got to meet Zachary this year. And then it was a unique opportunity, but here's what's cool about it. I met him because I was at a fundraising event for another charity that means a ton to me. It's a group called Saving Innocence that rescues kids from sex slavery. And who knew? Zachary Levi cares about the same charity. Now, if I weren't thinking about giving, I wouldn't have been there. And had I not literally written down, who do I want to meet this year? I don't think I would have recognized him. But one of the things I do every single day is review the goals that I had for the year so that they're top of mind. Every single day, I'm like, am I going to meet Zachary Levi? And then literally I'm there, and from me to you, it's like, I think that's Zachary Levi. And I'm alone. I'm like, I can't even confirm. You're like, usually you ask your spouse, is that really Zachary Levi? I'm like, and there's nobody with him. And I'm like, this is just too weird. So, hey, take the question of the doubt. Hey, are you, yeah, and I couldn't even get it out. But yes, he was there. He was a delightful human being. Point being, if you take the time to specify what you want in your life, you might actually recognize it when it's in front of you. But I'm convinced that we miss a lot of the stuff because we never take the time to specify what perfect looks like. It's a beginning. Get an idea of what the perfect would be, but it's not enough. I think we've got a lot more that we have to realize, and there's power in a new point of view. A change in perspective can actually add more to your life than you ever can imagine. I had a new point of view 11 years, 4 months, and 22 days ago on the fragility and the preciousness of life. But sometimes it's just recognizing there's something right there that we simply don't get because we don't pay attention. And one of the best examples I've ever seen of getting value from nothing with a change of perspective is this video. Watch.
This is the most perfect case of creating intangible added value without changing the product in the slightest. Shreddies is a strange square whole grain cereal only available in New Zealand, Canada, and Britain. It's Kraft's peculiar way of rewarding loyalty to the crown. In working out how you could relaunch Shreddies, he came up with this.
Shreddies is supposed to be square.
Are any of these diamond shapes gonna?
New Diamond Shreddies cereal. Same 100% whole grain wheat in a delicious diamond shape.
Can you imagine anything more audacious than that as a marketing ploy? Something with no change. There's actually one better. The new combo pack. I mean, that takes guts, people. But I actually think there's some incredible wisdom in this. Sometimes there is incredible stuff right in front of our eyes that we simply miss because we're not willing to think outside the box. I think we need to learn to look at things from a different point of view in order to appreciate what we already have. So here's what I want to do to get you out of your comfort zone. You've been sitting in chairs, looking forward. Now imagine everything that's happening outside of this room, you're missing. We have limited perspective. And even in this room, everything that you're taking in is only the 168 degrees, angle in front of you, and you're missing everything else. I want to put something in your mind about challenging your point of view. So for the next 2 minutes, here's what I want you to do. I want you to change your perspective dramatically in a physical way. So I want you to take stock of where you are right now, and anything but that is okay. So get up, lay on the floor, stand on the stage, stand on your chair, get on somebody's shoulders. But for now, stand up and assume an entirely different perspective than you just had. Go. Put it into action. Stand on a chair. Stand on the stage. See what it's like to be up here blinded by the lights. Lay on the floor. Look at the beautiful ceilings that we have all around us. We've got a piper down. Are you okay? All right, take in the difference. Now, does the room feel differently simply being in here? If an outside person walked into this, would they think, what the hell's going on in here? That's healthy. Shake it up. But here's what I want you to do. Get comfortable. Get stable. I want you to close your eyes. This is the point of view every day of everyone who's blind. And every day that you get sight should be so much more meaningful than we probably give it credit for. Just getting your sight back. Open your eyes and take back in the color and the people and all the things you get to take in every single day if you pay attention. Plug your ears. Put them in there. Just kind of talk out loud and see how everything's different. Losing your hearing, the deaf community, the hard of hearing community, where the number one uttered word is, what? That's the world my son lives in. He's profoundly deaf. Changed my life and his when I realized he can't hear me. Every day you get to hear people and hear the TV and hear music and listen to people say, I love you. It's a pretty amazing thing if you take it in. Put your hands by your side. And imagine that's the only place they could go. Imagine you had an accident and you're a quadriplegic and your limbs don't work. How do you open the door? How do you grab that cup of coffee? How do you come to an event like Talent Connect and introduce yourself and shake hands with people? How do you hug somebody and just tell them that you care about them? And you realize that's so incredible a gift, and we miss it because it's easy to take for granted. There is power in a new point of view, and I'm convinced if we can actually learn to appreciate what's already there, the perfect life we have defined is already a long way in coming to fruition. Grab your seats again, and let's continue to challenge this thought. Thanks for coming up on stage. Here's the problem. We are fantastic at identifying everything that's wrong. We are great critiquers. We find flaws in everything. Now imagine, you ever have those days you have a pounding headache and all you're thinking of, oh man, I wish I didn't have this headache. I wish this headache would go away. I wish this headache would go away. When's the last time you woke up and randomly on a 10:38 on a Tuesday morning, you're like, wait, how awesome, I don't have a headache right now. Hold on, this is fantastic. I think we have to stop getting so good at what's wrong and start asking, what's not wrong? What if you learned to stop once a day and said, wait, at this moment, hey, I'm not unemployed. That's good. Actually, right now I can see, and right now I can hear, and right now I can walk. And what if you made a list every day of what's not wrong? The stock market went up today. What? Well, that's good, because I certainly know when it goes down. What if we could learn to simply appreciate the stuff that's already great? I'm convinced we'd be much further down the road to the life we want. But you got to intentionalize it. Set an alarm at some weird hour of the day every day. You're like, why does that thing go? Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to remember what's not wrong. Be careful what meeting Jeff doesn't like when the alarms go off. Anyway, what's not wrong? Let's learn better. Now, we've talked about, do you have a roadmap of what could be your perfect life? The value of a different point of view and how that can actually move you substantially forward. But there's still a gap to close. Some of the things you put on your list haven't manifested themselves simply because you wrote them down or we paused to think about a different point of view. So let's talk about closing the gap. When I read this quote, I actually didn't like it. I thought, wait. I absolutely decide my future. And then I finished the sentence. People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. I thought, well, that's a different point of view. And it brings us to a really important point. There's a Duke University study that shows that about 40% of our day happens on autopilot. Habits, those invisible things that move without our permission. Now imagine, if they're good things bringing us towards our dream, fantastic. You got a 40% gimme. But if they're actually bad habits taking you away from your dreams, you're going to work harder every day walking up the down escalator. So it's worth pausing to say, what does that mean? Charles Duhigg did a whole bunch of research on this. He wrote a book called Habits, and he said habits can emerge outside our consciousness or can be deliberately designed. I like the fact that the second half exists because outside my consciousness generally translates to all the bad habits I picked up without knowing it. But if I can deliberately design my habits, I can close the gap on creating the life I want. And James Clear wrote a fantastic book I'll tell you about in a second, but he said, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. We've taken time to write down some goals, but guess what? It's not enough. Because if the systems around you are not put in place, the goals aren't going to get you there. And the systems that he talks about are habits. 2 books I would highly recommend: Atomic Habits. It's one of those rare books I finished and then literally turned back to page 1 and just read it again. It's the pragmatic application of what should be an incredibly mundane and boring topic, but it puts into reality how you create the habits to change your life. Atomic Habits, small things that make a huge difference. And here's the quick summary of what's in these books. Make it easy, make it difficult. Got it? Here's what it goes. Make it easy. The habits that are going to move you in the direction of your dreams, let's make those as easy as possible to implement. And the ones that are taking you away from the life you want, make them as difficult as possible to continue. Here's an example. There was a doctor at UMass who wanted to improve the health of what they served in the cafeteria, and they thought about all kinds of options and said, let's just boil it down. People drink too much soda. We're a hospital. Water would be better. And somebody said, do not mess with people taking away their soda. You will have a revolt. She said, I'm not going to take anything away. I'm curious, can we design the space to simply make it easier for people to make healthy choices? So what this represents, in the yellow, that's where they had soda. Refrigerators filled with soda. And on the side, you have 2 black boxes that represented where they had refrigerators with water. She said, let's change the design and see if we can get better results. So what she did is she left the soda exactly where it was. But she added water also into those 3 soda refrigerators. So now you could take soda or water out of those 3. She left the original 2 water places. But then in addition, she put kind of scattered around the store, little ice chest with ice, just with loose water bottles stuck in there. So as people were perusing through the cafeteria, if they wanted to, they could grab water easily. And here's what they found. People drank 25% more water and 11% less soda without taking anything away, but simply by designing the space where it was easier for people to make a healthy choice. And I'm convinced that approach can help us with the things we want to do. Can you design the space to achieve some of the things you put on your list? Here's some of the big 3 I always hear. You want to learn to play the guitar, you want to read more, or you want to eat healthier? I absolutely affirm the first one. I used to teach people how to play guitar, and the first thing I said is throw away the case. If it's in a case, literally, the process of going to the closet, Flipping 5 latches on a guitar case, you're like, nah, too much, forget it. I'm going to watch Netflix. Put it out where you trip over it every day, and you'll play the guitar 100 times more than you ever would have. That's how you make it easy. You want to read? Put a book on your pillow every morning. So at the end of the day, you're dead tired. You literally have to pick up a book and move it. It might fall open, and you might stumble onto a few words. Make it easy. Or my favorite, in the grocery store, we're very mindful. I'm going to eat healthy. I buy fruit. I come home. I put it in the crisper. 2.5 weeks later, I discover it in the crisper, moldy and gross. I throw it out, rinse and repeat for the rest of my life. What if you skipped the crisper and bought a big bowl and put it literally right in the middle of your counter? You would pass it on the way to the refrigerator, pass it on the way to the cupboard where you keep the potato chips, and I'm guessing you're going to consume a lot more fruit because you simply design the space to make it easier to do the things you want. I'd encourage you to look at the list of things and figure out, how do I make it as easy as possible? Now, on the other side, you might have some bad habits already. They are not taking you in the direction of your dreams. Victor Hugo, French poet, author, was supposed to be writing a book, but he loved socializing. He was a great procrastinator. He was out with friends every single night saying, woo, living the life. And the book publishers were getting very anxious because he was submitting nothing. They threatened to take away his advance on this next book. And he realized, I got to do something. I got to make it more difficult to procrastinate. He asked his assistant to go in and remove all his clothing from his house, with the exception of one large, long wool shawl. Realizing if I have no clothes, the chances of me going out socializing with my friends is basically none. And there he sat in his itchy wool shawl with no other clothing options and finished what became the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Make it difficult to continue the bad habits that aren't getting you where you want to go, and make it easy. So another guy was writing about the fact he loved popcorn but realized it's not very good for me. I can't really say I'm not going to buy it because I'd be lying to myself, so he said, I'll just make it difficult. He put the kernels, out in the garage, up on a top shelf where he needed a ladder to get it. So in his house, if he really wanted popcorn, he could. He'd have to go out in the garage, get a ladder down, climb up, pull down the kernels, and come back inside, which is the equivalent of going to the closet and flipping 5 switches on a guitar case, which is generally enough to thwart your efforts. Make it difficult. Ronan Byrne was an engineering student in Ireland, and he was struggling because he was becoming a couch potato, binge watching Netflix. Anybody have that problem in here? Yes. Last night, I was actually on Amazon Prime, but he was just sitting on the couch watching Netflix. So he decided, I need to make it difficult and use my engineering skills. He wired his television to his stationary bike that would only turn on if he continuously achieved a certain RPMs. And the minute he stopped pedaling, the TV went out. Problem solved. He could continue to binge watch Netflix, but he'd have to work his butt off in order to keep it going. Make it difficult to achieve the things that are prohibiting you. Now, it's a fascinating thing when you look at NASA and you ever watch those slow motion blast off of rockets. It's amazing. But they expend more fuel in the first few miles and the first few minutes than they will in the next subsequent days and hundreds of thousands of miles. And I think there's something incredibly important to grasp in that. It's hard to get off the ground. It's hard to get started. It's hard to change behavior. So James Clear in his book, Atomic Habits, states it really simply. You need to master the art of showing up. And he talks about the 2-minute rule. You want to establish a new habit, then when you start it, it should take less than 2 minutes to achieve your goal. 2 minutes. Make it as easy as possible. Master the art of showing up. So what does that look like practically? If your goals were to read more or write a book, there's your book. Run 3 times a week, it's too big. Here's what it looks like in James Clear's mind, 2-minute habit. Read a book becomes read 1 page. Write a book becomes write 1 paragraph. Or if you're really bad, write 1 word. Baby steps. If you want to run, this is my favorite one. Put on your running shoes and just step outside on the porch. Whew, got it, done. Now, it seems ridiculous, but do the math with me. If every single day you came home and you went in and you put on your running shoes and you opened the door and you walked out and walked back in, how many times could you do that before you're absolutely embarrassed with yourself? I mean, that's part of it. But there's a bigger part to it. You have to have the habit established before you can improve it. And that's the biggest problem. We don't want embarrassingly small goals, so we set lofty goals we never achieve. And his point is, it's all right. Put your shoes on, step on the porch. And if you can do that 30 days in a row, then we can add, how about you run across the street and back? That's it. In fact, he had somebody come to him and said, doctors told me I have to lose like 100 pounds. I am going to die if I continue my current lifestyle. He said, what do I do? He said, all right, here's the deal. For the next 31 days, you're going to go to the gym. And he goes, I can't do it. I've never been able to do it. And he goes, no, hear me out. For the next 31 days, you're going to go to the gym, but you cannot stay longer than 5 minutes. And I mean from the moment you get to the parking lot to you leave the parking lot. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm literally going to drive in, get out of my car, walk in, take off my clothes, put on other clothes, go out and look at people working out, go in, change, and get back in my car. How am I going to lose weight? He said, it's not about losing weight. You're mastering the art of showing up. You're retraining your brain to say you're somebody that goes to the gym every day. We'll establish the habit first, we'll improve it later. And once he was going to the gym every day, embarrassingly, changing twice and leaving, he said, is it possible now you could maybe do one exercise before you leave? And then it became 2, and 10 minutes became 30 minutes, and he lost the 100 pounds inside of 9 months. It would not have happened if he was to go to the gym and work out every single day. Start small. So whatever you wrote down as things that will add to your life, what's the 2-minute version of that can just get you walking in the right direction? Because ultimately, over time, you can improve those small habits to be much more meaningful. 2 great books. As I said, Atomic Habits really is a pragmatic application of something that can change your life. Well worth reading. Let me bring it home with a couple concepts. If your life was a movie, would anyone go see it? You get to write the story of your life. Make sure you're writing a meaningful story with a great starring role for who you want to be, so the stories of your life are what you want them to be at the end. Here's a couple things I want you to think about. Sometimes we think, gosh, I really wish I had figured this out a bunch of years ago, but I'm old, I'm tired. Rose is a fantastic example. She was in her 80s and regretted the fact she'd never gone to college. Said, how long can you regret it before you just say, I'm ridiculous, or do something about it? So in her 80s, she went back to college to pursue the degree she always complained about never getting. Now, at first, eyebrows were raised. All the college like, who's the old lady sitting in class? Because it kind of stands out. A bunch of 20-year-olds and Rose. But she continued to show up, and when she was 87 years old, she walked across the stage and got her diploma. And a week later, she died. Now, I first read that and I thought, oh, man, that's terrible. And then the second thought was, wait a second. She died psyched that she accomplished this thing she'd wanted to do for decades. But more interestingly, 2,000 college students showed up at Rose's funeral because they were inspired by someone who said, I can't believe it, man. It's never too late to be what I want to be. It's never too late to do what I want to do. So don't ever fall into that lie that it's too late for you. George Eliot was an author, said, it's never too late to be the person you might have been. Start today. Near and dear to my heart, Robert Leibowitz was having kidney failure. He was on an organ transplant list for 15 years, going nowhere. And he thought, I'm tired of just sitting around. I need to do something. And the takeaway for me here is do what you can with what you have wherever you are, but do something. So he thought, I'm tired of waiting. He was going to Disney World with his family, and he decided, I'm going to take a step. Might be stupid, but hey, action's better than nothing. And he had a T-shirt printed up that he said, I'm going to wear every day for our 9-day trip to Disney World. And it simply said, in need of kidney. O positive, call 917-597-2651. I'm sure his family's like, oh, Dad, serious? This is kind of embarrassing. But Rosia Sandoval was a spectator at Disney World and thought, well, that's the weirdest t-shirt I've ever seen. She took a picture and posted it on social media, and it was shared 90,000 times. And hundreds of people called Robert Leibowitz. Now, some were just like, dude, are you serious? What are you doing? That's crazy. Oh, no, I don't have a kidney for you. But a bunch were fully committed. Like, I'll do the testing. Let's see. And one guy took it the distance. He called. He went through the preliminary test. He went through the medical test. And his perspective was really clear. I've got 2. You can have one. And 6 months later, Richie Sully donated one of his kidneys to Robert Leibowitz and took him off the transplant list because he got one. Will it work for everyone? No. Life's not guaranteed success. But I promise you, as Gretzky used to say, you're guaranteed to miss 100% of the shots you do not take. I love it. So wherever you are, do something with it. It might make a world of difference in the life you're trying to create. Oprah says it so very well. The biggest adventure you can take is to live the life of your dreams. I think it takes courage. You've got to get outside your comfort zone. You've got to overcome gravity. You've got to overcome strange objections from people who think they're helping you, telling you not to get your hopes up. Get your hopes up. So they get dashed once in a while. Better to have your hopes up and have some promise of what the future could be. The biggest adventure you can have is to live the life of your dreams. I think the innovation of you is the most important innovation you can ever have. Jim Rohn was a guy I read enormous amounts from, and he said something that changed my perspective. He said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. You work on your job, you can make a living. You work on yourself, you can make a fortune. The innovation of you is the most important innovative thing you will ever do to create the life you want to live, which brings us to the very clear reality. Own it. Your life is your story. I would encourage you to write well, edit often, reflect all the time on if you're going the direction you want to go. Which brings us full circle where we started. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I hope you do amazing things and live the life you want. Thanks for your time.